We already covered 7 of the dumbest wars in history. Turns out there were more. A lot more. This time, some of them aren't even against humans. Put Benz on while you're cooking, working, studying, or just need something running in the background. The Emu War, 1932. Australia once declared war on a bird and lost. By the 1930s, Western Australian farmers had an emu problem. Emus are large, flightless, and apparently not afraid of anyone. They kept raiding wheat farms, eating crops, causing real damage. In 1932, with wheat prices already collapsing during the Great Depression, the emu population exploded at exactly the wrong time. Farmers asked for help. The government sent the military. 3 machine gunners, 2 heavy guns, 10,000 rounds of ammunition against birds. The first attempt got rained out. The second attempt, soldiers ambushed a small group of emus, killed about 10 out of thousands. Then they tried mounting guns on trucks to chase them down. The guns jammed mid-chase. The commanding officer got so frustrated, he tried to run an emu over with the truck. He missed. Hit a fence instead. It turned out emus are surprisingly fast, scatter unpredictably, and, according to the soldiers themselves, started posting lookouts to warn the group when humans showed up. Lookouts! The emus had lookouts! By the time the military gave up, they'd fired over 10,000 rounds. Confirmed kills? Fewer than 200. That's over 50 bullets per bird. The British press mocked Australia mercilessly. The military never tried again. The farmers eventually solved it themselves. Fences and bounty payments. No machine guns required. Score? Emus 1, Australian Army 0.
The Great Sparrow Campaign, 1958. This one starts the same way. A government decides a bird is the problem. It does not end the same way. In 1958, Chinese officials calculated that each sparrow ate about 1 kilogram of grain per year. Multiply that by an estimated 2.5 billion sparrows, and the math suggested eliminating them could feed millions of additional people. So China launched a nationwide campaign to wipe out sparrows. Entire cities mobilized. Students, factory workers, soldiers, children, all encouraged to participate. People banged drums and pots to keep sparrows flying until they dropped from exhaustion. Nests were destroyed, eggs smashed. In just 3 days, Beijing and Shanghai alone killed nearly 1 million sparrows. Within a year, over 2 billion sparrows were dead. The campaign was, by its own goal, a complete success. There was just one detail the planners had missed. Sparrows don't only eat grain. They also eat insects, specifically the insects that eat crops. With the sparrows gone, locust populations exploded. Crops that had survived sparrows did not survive the locusts. Combined with other policy failures of the era, the result was one of the worst famines in modern history. Tens of millions of people died in the years that followed. China eventually had to import sparrows from the Soviet Union just to rebuild the population. The campaign to save grain by killing birds ended up costing far more than it ever saved. This one isn't really a punchline. It's a reminder that ecosystems don't care about your 5-year plan.
The Kettle War, 1784. Back to wars between actual humans, slightly lighter ones. The Holy Roman Empire was not Roman, and historians still argue about how holy it was. In 1784, the emperor wanted Dutch-controlled river access reopened for trade. The Dutch said no. They'd said no for years. So the emperor sent 3 warships up the river as a show of force. The Dutch responded with a single, perfectly aimed cannon shot. It hit the lead ship. Specifically, it hit a kettle sitting on the deck. The kettle was destroyed. The Imperial fleet immediately surrendered. 3 warships, 1 cannon shot, 1 dead kettle. That was the entire war. A peace treaty was signed about a year later. The Dutch kept control of the river and paid a modest settlement. The kettle did not survive to see it.
the Pastry War, 1838. In 1832, a French pastry chef in Mexico City served a group of Mexican soldiers. They ate, they did not pay. When the baker complained to local authorities, he reportedly got roughed up instead of reimbursed. So he wrote to the King of France. France and Mexico already had tension. Trade tariffs, complaints from other French merchants about property damage. The baker's letter became the final excuse. France demanded compensation, 600,000 pesos. For context, the bakery itself was worth roughly 1,000 pesos. Mexico refused. France sent a fleet, captured the port of Veracruz, blockaded the entire Gulf Coast. Mexico brought back a retired general for the emergency, a man with serious battlefield experience. It didn't help much. French artillery was simply better equipped.
Mexico surrendered in 1839, agreed to a payment plan. The general lost a leg in the fighting. It was later given a full military funeral on its own. Mexico stopped paying eventually, leading to a second, much larger French intervention decades later. But that fight started somewhere else entirely. This one started with an unpaid bakery bill.
The Musician's Debt, 1366. This one is from India, and it's not about religion, even though it sounds like it should be. A sultan in the Bahmani Sultanate hired musicians for his son's wedding. After the celebration, instead of paying them himself, he wrote the musicians a note redirecting them to a neighboring Hindu kingdom, the Vijayanagara Empire, telling them the king there would cover the bill. The musicians traveled roughly 400 kilometers to collect. The Vijayanagara king had never invited them, never heard of the debt, and had no intention of paying for someone else's wedding. He sent them home empty-handed. They walked the 400 kilometers back and reported the rejection. By the time the story got back to the Sultan, exaggerated along the way, he decided his ambassadors had been disrespected. That was enough. War followed. Several major battles. The Bahmani Sultanate won. The losing king was forced to surrender and pay the original debt himself. Once the money was handed over, the Sultan withdrew his army immediately. Mission accomplished. Musicians paid. Several battles fought to get there. Andorra versus Germany, 1914 to 1939. Andorra is a tiny country between France and Spain. Population roughly 60,000. It does not have an army, just a small local militia. In 1914, apparently wanting to support the Allies, Andorra formally declared war on Germany. Germany did not respond, possibly didn't notice, possibly didn't care. No fighting ever happened. Andorra wasn't even officially recognized as a participant in the war. Then everyone forgot about the declaration. For 25 years, through the entire rest of World War I, and apparently somehow partway into World War II preparations as well. Officials only rediscovered the unresolved declaration in 1939, and the two countries quietly signed a peace agreement to close the books. A country with no army, fighting no battles, eventually made peace in a war nobody remembered happening.
The War of the Golden Stool, 1900. This one ends with actual respect, so stay with it. The Golden Stool is the most sacred object of the Ashanti people in what is now Ghana. It's believed to hold the spirit of the entire Ashanti nation. Tradition says even the king himself isn't allowed to sit on it. In 1900, the British governor in the region, addressing Ashanti chiefs, demanded, in the name of the British Queen, that he be allowed to sit on the Golden Stool himself, as a display of colonial authority. The chiefs said nothing in the moment. They were surrounded by armed British soldiers. But when they returned home, they began organizing. Led by the Queen Mother, Ya Ashantewa, Ashanti forces rose up and attacked British positions across the region. The governor retreated to a fort and was besieged for months. British reinforcements eventually arrived. Superior weaponry turned the tide. As defeat became likely, Ashanti leaders hid the Golden Stool deep in the forest rather than let it fall into British hands. The British crushed the uprising. They searched for the stool for years. They never found it.
It stayed hidden until the British colonial government formally agreed not to interfere with it. Only then did the Ashanti bring it back. Today, the golden stool is still protected and revered in Ghana. This is the rare one on this list where the dumb decision belonged entirely to one side, and the other side never gave up what mattered to them.
7 more wars. 2 were against birds. 1 human lost. 1 bird population paid for it for decades. 1 war ended after a single kettle died. 1 started over an unpaid bakery bill and ended with a leg getting a military funeral. 1 country forgot it was at war for 25 years. And 1 ended with a sacred object that was never found. Because some things matter more than winning. Which one got you this time? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more dumb facts, smart vibes.